horse drifted alarmingly in the betting was, fancied in the morning, continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Buttons.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
And a very warm welcome on this very cold Sabbath. This is the Bar Stewards Inquiry Sunday Sermon. My name's Lee Keys of systembet.co.uk, and joining me is my partner in crime, as always, John Lang of John Joe's Blogspot. John, good afternoon on this cold day.
Good afternoon, Lee. Happy Sunday, everyone.
Good afternoon. We've got some fabulous topics, and also joining us today again is Lorne Malver, who is very popular with some of our listeners. Get some good fan mail for Lorne. I'll not boost him up too much, but
no, please don't. I'd want pain otherwise.
Good afternoon, sir. I mean, one of the questions from one of the fanboys was, does Lorne really look like his profile picture on the Bar Stewards website?
Yeah. What's the matter?
No. So I said no. I said, if you can imagine, a grey-haired, sort of aging man, pair of Wranglers, 1990s Volvo as he's polishing the bonnet, pride and joy, in the country. And he's got Genesis blasting out at full blast.
That's true. Mexican gangbanger with a Chevy Impala that bounces up and down. That's me. On it, heavily tattooed, the lot. That's me.
Lee told me that the website picture had been airbrushed. Actually.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, I mean, you never get. It's like I'm catfishing women with that picture. When I turn out, I'm even worse.
You'll get plenty with that.
I bet I would. I bet. That's very nice of you, but yeah. It's an accurate representation.
On with today's show, and today's show is sponsored by Tarquin's Gin at 57% Navy strength, which I can guarantee, this is my Christmas tip, if the in-laws come round, make sure that's their aperitif. They'll sleep for hours. On to the racing. We've got a fantastic show, and we're going to cover off the weekend action. Obviously today at Fairy House, the Bar One Festival, anything that me and John saw of interest. Yesterday, obviously, we got the big Newbury meeting, which was rather. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the racing yesterday. Our tipping was absolutely dreadful, but we did have some shocking luck. Poor Andy with the remastered in the Hennessy. That was soul destroying for Andy, John.
Soul destroying wasn't the word, was it? It was going to win.
I think so. I mean, the snout's been on. Bursting about his second, but I mean, let's be fair. The snout would have been third, and I mean, not much of a price in the end. So terrible info from the snout, John. What with the Fiddler on the Roof?
Yeah, which is standard we couldn't expect over the years, really.
These info merchants, this is what you get. But yeah, I mean, like covering off Newbury yesterday, I mean, highlights for me, I would say, was the very impressive and exuberant performance from Ahoy Senor. The galloping, the style, everything else, does that go to Kempton, John, do you think, on Boxing Day, Ahoy Senor?
You're very much the obvious target, I think.
You'd have to be. I mean, flat track, out and away, bowling along, jumping well, got plenty of pace, plenty of boot.
Yeah.
I mean,
where else would you go? In all fairness.
Yeah, he's put those to the sword lovely. I mean, for a novice as well, the time was pretty decent. About 10 seconds slower than standard, I think. On the Billy Idol in the end with no pressure. Cap Course won the Sir Peter O'Sullivan. Your tip, John, in the mentions. We've got to boast something because we've nothing much to shout about. And Cap Course, as John rightly said on the show, was the JP McManus in the Sir Peter O'Sullivan colours, doing the business really easily. I bet you enjoyed that, though, and I bet you had a few quid on, John.
Very few quid. Very few. Nowhere near enough. Offset the damage done by horses like the Longsdon one in the rehearsal and other less illustrious mentions.
Yeah, and in typical Bar Steward style, we had the head-to-head, me and you, going head-to-head with the Masters Legacy and Ansem. We both sat there probably with about 3 to jump, thinking it could be me and you hand in hand. Then up pops the Twister with Earl of the Cotswolds and, spoils the party, and very upsetting for both of us, that finish.
Totally. I mean, anything but the other one, really. And there you go. Just not, we're not getting dealt a very good hand at the minute.
No, I don't think so. I think we're due a change of look because we've had some good calls, but just not quite getting paid. As Quentin Frank streaks clear at the top of the table, he'll be laughing his head off. He's in Canada at the moment. He'll be absolutely laughing his head off. Anything else on Saturday at Newbridge that took your eye, or anything for the future that ran on Saturday that you want to point out to our listeners?
I thought the Willie Mullins Cheveley Park showed promise for an extreme distance in the Henderson. They had that a long way back and steadily up the straight as though it was looking for another mile, really. I wouldn't rate that one off on the basis of it getting late there. But I think that was about it.
Yeah, I think on the ropes. Don't forget. I think it's still quite raw, inexperienced. It's took a long time to get the hang of things, and I think it was probably a step too much too soon. It's quite weak on the ropes on the machine, and yeah, but I agree with you. I think there's something there for the future. Il Ridotto won very impressively with the 4-year-old allowances in the finale. That you could tell that had won from about 3 to jump. The owned by all the lads, Jed Mason and company, owning a nice horse there to go to war with. Did you see that race?
Yeah, nice seeing them having one that Ferguson isn't involved in. I've never forgiven him for his conduct over Rock of Gibraltar. I mean, gets it run out and then starters at Stallion shares.
Yes, well, yeah, the old Rock of Gibraltar. I forgot about that. Yeah, the old debate on Stallion debentures, and Fergie wanted his cut of the pie. I know. Interesting.
Come on, lads. I've had no doubt in this.
Yeah. Go over to Newcastle then, where I was actually surprised the meeting went ahead. Nothing wrong with the meeting either, really. So I was just surprised, given the forecast and everything on the winds, and obviously they had another inspection in the morning just to check, and you're thinking, this might be dodgy, but obviously no problems. Anything there, John, that you want to comment on?
I was just a bit surprised your Cooper's Cross got paid, to be honest.
Again, on the floor. We're all on the floor. I mean, this is the thing, Johnny. You know, like if ever like punters think, they're idiots. These. I mean, they've got a point. To be fair, I mean, I was on that quite heavily. You know, no layouts on the machine or anything. It was just like, well, you know, this is one. It's gone to the front. He's took it up lovely, and then back comes the rag and beats it quite comfortably in the end. And I was in shock. I was, again, on the floor, and then put on the floor. You know, it's just.
I couldn't believe it. We got the two shit houses right early on. I mean,
yeah.
Capello, Mississippi folded up like a cardboard box, as predicted. It should have been plain sailing from there on in.
Yeah, I think that's obviously got wind issues to Pello. It's obviously not a shit house. We said it's soft, but I reckon that's got really bad wind issues the way that stopped. And Valera's just tried to kill itself after about 2 or 3 fences and tried to do the same again next time round as if it was on suicide watch, and that was well beat. And we'd done the hard work, we'd done the hard yards, and then that happens. But that sort of summed up. Right in 5th, John. Epatante and Not So Sleepy, the dead eat. A lot of punters had gone balls deep on the machine, like 10s on and stuff back in Epatante in the photo, and ends up with a dead eat.
It's honest, sad to see JP and Nicky miss out, isn't it? Nice horse, that Not So Sleepy, but I don't know whether it's a champion hurdle candidate.
No, I don't think any of these will be worrying the judge, especially leading on nicely onto today's fair and at Fairy House, and obviously Honeysuckle, the blogger, all the National Hunt wagons out there punting. They were on Honeysuckle, obviously very, very well backed today, blasted into 2 to 5 from the 4 to 7 available. Bet bloggers had the 4 to 7 into 2 to 5 and won as she liked. My view was Abracadabras was racing with the ambulance for most of the way, and then decided, let's have a go from the straight. I'm not sure how off Abracadabras was really. I don't know what that was. They must have given the front 2 or 3 probably 20 lengths, maybe more start. It was quite incredible the way the race was run. Thoughts on that, John?
Well, I think anybody that was privy to the riding instructions pre-race for the market rivals would have probably backed the winner. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got some good racing there today. The Royal Bond Novice for me was slowly run and unsatisfactory. I think, do you know what? I'll give the Irish some credit. We always give the Irish some hammer for their substance abuse, but let's give them some credit here. Like, a lot of their races over there are quite slowly run, or can be. And the Royal Bond for me was an example of that, with Statuaire literally winning a 2 furlong sprint. I was quite surprised how slow they went in that, and that's typical of a lot of Irish racing. Any views on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think how races run, it's just really, you look on the day, you know, I mean, you usually bank on a bit of pace if the same stable has 2 or 3, and again, as long as it's one of the big stables, again, they waste one, don't they? And they don't seem to mind doing that. The one I really fancied, the Royal Bond, was a non-runner, 3 Straight Life.
Pulled out, yeah.
I was busting to back that today. I thought that showed a lot of promise in the bumper last year. I was really keen to see how it done today. But
I mean, Mighty Potter in that's one to take out of that for me, because I still think he's quite raw on experience, and I do think he's more of a stouter staying type than any others in that. And Mighty Potter for me is the one I'm excited about going forwards in a more truly run race for your notebook. So Mighty Potter, that's the one to take out of that race for me. That didn't really get the run of the race at all. In the Drinmore, Beacon Edge winning. I know Andy was quite negative on this, and to be fair, it looked a million in running and then just got up close home. A bit unsatisfactory sort of race for me. Fury Road looking a complete hound, travelling and then finding nothing. Beacon Edge broke the hearts of Gabby Nacco backers, who had done a lot of things right until a few late mistakes in the race. And then we moved on to the Powerstown, where me and you, John, both thought that my sort of 1 point bet for the weekend, Cocoa Beach, even though he was fairly well beaten in 6 in the end, we both liked the horse. Well, you did. You said to me, I really like this horse on looks today, Cocoa Beach.
Yeah, I just think it's a nice horse. Travelled nice, jumped nice. Not the road to Doncaster, the road to Aintree. No.
Yes. You'd be astounded as a 6-year-old. So it's got its life in front of it at the moment. You know, it's not one of these sort of 8-9-year-old slow maturing types. It's 6-year-old. It's had a first season chasing season. They went for the Irish National, which I said on Friday was ambitious. And literally now, I think that wasn't quite cherry ripe today. The market said that it was very weak, and the way it travelled and jumped and then just obviously got tired. I genuinely think they've got a plan with that horse. And I think whatever target they've got in mind, a staying event, probably with more value. Don't forget that was €23,000 to the win of that race today. They'll be thinking a bigger fish. Well, you would be. If you owned a 150 rated staying chaser with potential, you'd be thinking we want an 100k race plus. You know, there's plenty of those about later in the season, and maybe they've got their mind on something else with Cocoa Beach. So, Honeysuckle, obviously very impressive, and obviously everyone's waxing lyrical. Blogger's got amazing, thrilling rocket machine statuses for the next few days. So good luck to him on that. So that's the racing covered off. We've got plenty to talk about, so we'll move on from the racing and bring Lorne Malvo into it, who's sat quietly listening to our rubbish for the first 15 minutes or so of the show. We're going to start off on National Hunt racing, and I think it's a nice topic to follow on from obviously the weekend's racing. And we've got a few questions regarding the current state of play regarding National Hunt racing. And obviously the first thing I want to touch on is the Nicky Henderson debate from this week, where obviously Nicky Henderson had the favourite for the Tingle Creek, Shishkin, and then suddenly decided that he wouldn't be ready, and as Julie pulled the horse out. What are you two's thoughts on this? So I'll come to you, Lorne, first. The withdrawal of Shishkin in the Tingle Creek.
Well, I mean, I think racing Twitter is sort of divided into two camps, isn't it? Camp A says, you don't pay the bills. How many winners have you trained? And, you know, Nicky knows what's best for his horse, and he's not going to risk a horse that he doesn't feel is right. So that's camp A. The other camp is sort of those individuals who really think that those at the very top table have a wider obligation to create an engaging and compelling spectacle for the people that fund it, so punters, racegoers, etc. And their criticism is a sort of suggestion that actually there's fuck all wrong with the horse. He just didn't fancy the shape of the race, etc., and so has used the horse's well-being as an excuse not to run it. And unfortunately, it does kind of follow a tried and trusted pattern, doesn't it? That everything is about Cheltenham, but it's not just about Cheltenham. It's about trying to preserve a horse's unbeaten record. And so, this is going to happen time and time again. And the net result of this, whether the horse is right or wrong, is just going to create pretty shit sort of non-events prior to Cheltenham. So I'm sort of in the second camp, that I'm not quite buying the fact that the horse is, not burning the gallops up and therefore, shouldn't run. So that's my take on it. I think Nicky Henderson has got a bit of a track record for not being particularly straightforward with the press, shall we say. That's my view anyway.
Yeah, good. John, what would you describe the?
Well, I think shit shows the operatives. Really. I mean, as I said on Friday, I mean, I'm long past taking a blind bit of notice of anything he says. So it doesn't really matter to me what he says in the build-up to a race, whether he says one going somewhere else. Till I start studying the cards, maybe at the 48-hour stage, I have zero interest in him.
Do we think, to a degree, though, because it's Henderson and he's got previous for this, that's why the racing media in some quarters, and I'll say some quarters because I'll come on to Mark Mackay's question in a minute. Yeah. But in some quarters, is this the problem that because it's Henderson,
he didn't do himself any favours, does he? Because I mean, there's certain ones. I mean, he's ridiculously rude to. I mean, he was pegging and went out. Got took out. He was. Well, I mean, he just made an ass out of himself, right? He didn't insist it was heavy ground. Yeah. I mean,
so coming to Mark Mackay's question, which is, he mentions the discussion, Nicky Henderson on the opening show. Now, I haven't seen the opening show, so I'm hoping both you have or one of you two have. Fitzgerald was utterly pathetic. Walsh is just a money grabber. Chapman stealing a living. What a farce of a panel. Racing refusing to see why the National Hunt season in the UK is in crisis until the spring festivals. Incidentally, all three of them are Paddy Power payees.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't expect balanced commentary from Mick Fitzgerald because he is a long-term, in quotes, servant of the Henderson camp. Is a regular visitor to Seven Barrows, so he's not going to take a stand, is he?
No.
Matt Chapman, I mean, I'm not a fan of his style of broadcasting. He reminds me of the sort of bloke in the office who, after a couple of pints, is a wanker. He's that kind of bore where you sort of, it's cringy. It's like, oh, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? It's not my kind of style of broadcasting. And Ruby Walter, I'm not a fan of particularly as well. I mean, I think he's just a miserable sod. I don't know whether he's a money grabber or not. I dare say he probably doesn't need the money. But on that panel, you're not going to get any sort of objective debate about it. That they are going to close ranks, and they did because everything in racing is great. And how many winners have you trained? Actually, Oliver Sherwood actually said that, didn't he? In a tweet.
Oliver Sherwood, actually came back at Lydia. On Twitter this week and said the very thing that all these people that are commenting on this, how many winners have you? He actually said that, and I think it's the most cringeworthy thing that anyone can ever say. And I know Oliver's not been very well, so I wish him well. I know he's had some health issues in the past, so I'm certainly not going to pile on the man. But certainly that was ill. I just think ill thought out. I get what he's trying to say, that if the horse isn't right, there's not much point in saying we're going to run it. I get that. I get it's not, you get a niggle with a National Hunt horse, but I mean, looking back in the day, I follow a chap called Joe Porter on Twitter. And I think one day me and John would quite like him on the show, really, because he's racing orientated and he produces these like old-fashioned race cards, from the papers of the past, 1987 Tingle Creek, 1990 King George, and you see what was running back then. It's quite nostalgic And then you see how many coconuts and how many runs horses had that were good horses, but they didn't mind back then having a spin. They didn't mind. Oh, what is all this like unbeaten rubbish? What is all this 1-1-1? Why does a horse have to remain unbeaten? I've never understood why. I mean, they'll be back next year. It's not a problem. You know, if you retire winning 22 from 22 races, you can't go to stud. It's not you're not going to make fortune. You know, I don't quite get it. John, your thoughts?
I don't even know if protecting unbeaten records to that extent. I think they just get the wind up a bit and think the be all and the be all and end all for Shiskin this year over the champion chase. If he doesn't think the horse wants a fairly hard race, which chances are it would have got if he turned up against one of Willie's. If he doesn't factor that into its programme leading up with Cheltenham, so well, I'm fairly ambivalent about it. You know, I mean, I'm not one of these that think they have to turn up to keep the show on the road. You know, I think if races start turning into farces, like say Tingle Creek becomes a over, God forbid, you know, turn it into a limited handicap or something. You know, I mean, they have the scope to change things if they want to, which I think it's not in the bill. Yeah, you know, as I say, I'm really not asked what Nicky Henderson has to say about anything. And less so his apologists like Mick Fitz. So, you know, I hate the meow button. You know, I mean, I like Ruby as an analyst. You know, I like listening to him going through races and what have you. He wouldn't be someone I would take a blind bit of notice of on how we market racing or racing politics or anything like that, because I'm sure he'd go native, but I think he's an excellent race analyst. And as for the other fellow, well, forget it.
I mean, going forwards on this, what about the Tingle Creek, John? Remember back in the day, it used to be a limited handicap, and obviously it was like, you know, this is an event where you can sort of, I don't know, turn up. In fact, that's what we should do. It should be a limited handicap, because I genuinely feel that you could have a top class 2 mile chaser that's you could even say it's having a prep race. This is its journey to Doncaster, and and basically it might need the run. I mean, are the Irish laughing at us here? Because we had this stupid Gallops morning at Newbury televised on Racing TV. Are the Irish just laughing at us? I mean, look at the Irish today. In the Royal Bond, they get all the best.
Yeah, they wanted to pecking out, didn't they, straight away?
They want to find out who can do what. Has this horse got to turn a foot? Can this horse sprint in a 2 mile? They know their hands a lot better than we do. By the time Cheltenham comes around, irrespective of whether you think there's any artificial carrots going in there.
The Irish have had some serious time trials. Meanwhile, in the UK, they're testing out Formula One cars by pushing them in and out of the garage.
I'll tell you what, I could solve this. You want to get Mark Johnson, get a national hunt licence, Shiskin to run fucking 9 times by now.
There's every chance it'd be rated 128 trying to win at Leicester.
Definitely. That'd have been run half a dozen times by now since August. No danger. That's how you do it.
Be making all in the Malmare fleet, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hurdles, chases, long distance. You have the lot, honestly. Run the guts out of it.
I mean, obviously, the problem National Hunt Racing has got, obviously, is outside forces in terms of if we start banning things in racing. I mean, John Hines, who's a very good listener of ours and a very good contributor to some threads of ours and talks racing. He's very anti-whip, but I would say before they come for the whip, the outside racing crowd might even come for National Hunt Racing first, because to argue that the current whip rules, for example, it's a pro cush, if you like, you know, it's not like the old whip. That's more cruel than making a horse, you know, burn its tendons out, you know, like all its life. You can have several debates about this, but if they come for anything, it has to be National Hunt Racing. I'm sorry to say to National Hunt fans, but that is how it is. If the wider social demographic, if that's how we're playing now, and we're not going to ignore them, and we're just going to like you said, John. John's always been an advocate of the BHA just ignoring the outside world and saying, well, they don't like the sport anyway, so what's the point? And I'm in John's camp. But the point is, if they are going to take on board what the outside world thinks about racing, National Hunt Racing surely has a limited shelf life, chaps.
Well, that's the trouble as well, you see. They've already opened the door to the outside world because they've provided these stops on the whip issue. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we should still be using 3-foot one to whalebone that you could spice bacon with. That's completely wrong. It was never really right, in my opinion. But once you've opened the door to like the RSPCA, Animate, Ton, or Thought, they will keep pushing. And I think it showed in the national the year ever so many were pulled up, you know. I mean, and then they were saying, well, it's too far. You can't expect them to run that far. That's why so many had pulled up. Not applauding the fact that jockeys had taken the welfare decision not to try and complete. So you literally can't do right for doing wrong with a lot of these people. You know, I mean, I do respect the views on the whip and things like that. I personally don't agree with them, but I mean, I think there's room for debate there. But once that debate is been had, we need to close the door on the subject. You know, you just can't keep going round in circles, knocking 2 or 3 strikes off the permissible limit every time you the discussion.
I mean, Damiano says, so going back to the festival, a new rule that a horse has to have a qualifying numbers to get into any race to the festival to boost field sizes. So what he's saying is that on the National Hunt season, a horse must run, say, three minimum to get in the novice hurdles and all handicaps. Same for chasing hurdles, grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3 level at the festival. Any thoughts on like to try and boost field sizes, you know, on the road to Doncaster? You know, is there any mileage in his comments? Lorne, what we're saying?
Don't know. Maybe. I don't know what effect that would have on the programme book or the way trainers campaign their horses, but I don't know. I mean, I probably don't know enough about that aspect of comment, but it might be an idea. I mean, I don't know. John, would there be a drawback in that from an insider's point of view? Would that cause trainers particular problems, or do you think it's a good idea?
Well, thinking about it, as he has the novice, I don't think that many novices come to the festival unexposed to that extent. I mean,
I think, John, I think Damiano's comment, sorry, I probably didn't explain it well enough, that he thinks that they should have probably 2 or 3 runs, maybe at grade 1, 2, or 3 level before turning up. In other words, to boost these crap graded races that we have, you know, where we end up with 4 runners. He's saying that maybe to fill those grade 1s, 2s, 3s. But then don't we get the situation where we get a Bob Ollinger maybe turning up, and then everyone else just decides, well, we're not off anyway.
Absolutely, you could do, yeah.
Ruby Walsh did highlight this, and he said it's a real difficult scenario to try and do, because obviously if Bob Ollinger turns up, you know, if you want to beat him, you're probably going to leave your race there and not at your target, which is probably turning up at Cheltenham on the day for the owners to say, you know, we're going for the Ballymore, you know, we're excited. And then obviously Bob Ollinger turns up, and then you go, well, you know, we're going to have to run to 160 to beat this. So what's the point, kind of thing? And then punters are left short again when they think, well, this is a nice horse, and this could trouble Bob Ollinger. But then connections might go, well, you know, we don't really fancy it today. And then again, you've got the punters moaning after the race saying, well, nice of them to set off in 14th place and then make ground into 4th later on, you know. And you've got
these graded races, like, that seem to be the problem. They have the scope to alter they don't have to be graded races, do they? I mean, they can turn them into limited handicapped, whatever. If the year on year they're not getting supported, alter the makeup of the race.
But John, it's like flat racing. If a group race or a listed race isn't getting the support, it gets downgraded. Hence the Hillary Needler. if it's not getting the right sort of rating of horse in the race, or they're not getting the support, that race becomes downgraded.
And it was always supported in inverted commas, wasn't it? Because it was a mad scramble for an easy bit of black tape.
And again, we talk about, like Mark Mackay's point, the spring festivals are the problem for the national hunt racing. That Irish trainers are looking at Punchestown. And some will say in February, no, we're not going to Cheltenham, we're saving it for Punchestown. And then you've got other trainers saying, no, Cheltenham's the plan. And it's just built around literally 2 festivals, Punchestown, or if you've got like a staying chaser, in general, it's Aintree. And I think, John, you've said it to me privately, and you've said they may as well start the national hunt season in February. The national game, I think, has problems the way it's going. It's not always had problems. Because, as I said, I think in the past, and I'm speaking from experience, and somebody can put me wrong, but from past experiences, trainers weren't that bothered if they turned up and the horse got beat. Look at Desert Orchid. Just go on Racing Post website. Look at Desert Orchid's career. It could turn up. It could turn up in a Jim Ford. It could turn up anywhere, and the horse might get beat and just run miles below form. David Ellsworth wasn't bothered. He knew what he got as targets for the horse. He knew he wanted to win King George's. He knew he wanted to probably win at Aintree, knowing he wasn't. I mean, the Cheltenham Gold Cup win was probably a fluke in the end. But at the end of the day, trainers have targets. And the Irish, even though like we, as a podcast, we've been critical of the magic carrots for a while, which we know goes off. You can't deny it. It's a waste of time. That aside, the Irish are very, very good at working out what plan they've got for the horse. They'll think, well, if we win this, we win it. We're not really bothered, but we'll just carry on running the horse, planning. But this is the target. Towards the end of the season, this is the race. This horse will win. And it's like that's what more English trainers should do. And I think that's where running them at home in the box on the Newbury Gallops is not acceptable for national hunt fans in this country that want to see horses run. And if Shishkin turned up in the Tingle Creek and got dicked 20 lengths by a Mullins horse, who cares? You shouldn't care that much. It's just how it is. You've then got to, as a punter, you've got to go forwards and view it as, right, we've got back to the, but was that horse's running left there? That's the point. We try to win races November, December, January, but like John says, it comes back to it. Do we start the national season in February? We go on to the next question, which is Dew Pontons, which is more of a fun question, which he says, who will own horses in the UK in 10 years? Are small fields now linked to less horses? What are the positives of owning a horse in the UK? And what would your 2 trainers, each jumps and flat, be to send a horse to? We've had these with sort of like who we'd send trainers before, but John, who would you send a horse to over jumps?
None of them.
Where does he train?
I wouldn't have horse training as a present. I wouldn't.
No.
Just pretend no, for the purposes of the question. Just pretend. You won the lottery. All right, you won the lottery and you had to have a horse in training.
Yeah.
Who would you stick it with?
Was that a condition of winning the lottery, having to have a horse in training?
Yeah. You wouldn't buy a ticket.
It crossed my mind not to buy a ticket, to be honest. I honestly don't know. There is nobody I could honestly say I sit here and wish I had a horse in training with. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I think it's an absolute money pit these days. And honestly, outside of the top boys, I really don't know why anybody bothers with it.
I can speak from experience. I've done my bollocks. I mean, literally owning horses. I've done my absolute bollocks. I mean, we're not talking 5,000, 10,000. I've done 6 figures plus owning horses, and some never see the race course. Some, it is like John says, it's an absolute money pit because this just isn't about the purchase price. It isn't like going to the sales and saying, "Oh, we bought a nice type here for 10,000." Literally, you can have an horse in training for 2 years, sometimes 3 years even, and you're waiting for a run. And that brings us nicely onto our next subject, which is Dan Skelton.
Are we getting Lorne's trainer?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Lorne has said on Twitter today.
This is why you pay me the big money, boys. This
is
the gem.
It is, because this is useful for punters.
It's a long time between drinks, but I tell you what, you go back and have a little look at a tiny yard called Tom Weston over the sticks. Now, you'll laugh. You say he has a winner every pancake day. But when they shorten considerably in the market, he does not miss. I'm telling you. You have a look, have a proper dig through, and they will land 2 or 3 touches every year. And I tell you, he reminds me of Richard Newland before everybody cottoned onto him. Right? So you get big springers that piss up, and eventually the market will cotton onto him, and he'll get better owners, better horses, and the market will adjust accordingly. But Tom Weston, I think, is very sharp.
I agree. If punters haven't cottoned on yet, they might have, but as I said,
they have. No, they go off sort of treble figure prices when they're out for a run, and even when they're at it, you're still talking double figure odds
price
every time.
Yeah,
they are definitely worth keeping an eye on. And when they collapse in the betting, 9 times out of 10, they're there or thereabouts. They're a sharp little outfit.
Thank you for reminding me there, John, because, yes, that was Lorne's big moment of the show.
Yeah, that was it. I've peaked now.
Yeah, other than his highlight of polishing the Volvo. That was
exactly. the Chevy Impala with the jacked up front. Yeah.
Tom Weston, for our punters and listeners there from Lorne, he's a man
on Twitter. Tag him in. He might DM us a bit of info for Christmas if he's setting one up. Get him tagged in.
Got one doubly engaged this way.
Yeah, you see? Come on, Tom. Yeah. Is it a buzzer? Let us know.
Well, I'm told with a few trainers listening to this podcast, I'm told Stuart Williams is one of them. He likes the banter.
Don't like him. He's gone at
Yeah.
the game.
Poor Stuart. Veach's gone elsewhere. Late question from Helen Sheridan, who is a fantastic. I always like getting Helen's questions out because she's active on Twitter with us. We like that. And she says the article "RE Top Jobs in Racing being a closed shop" basically bonus points for any anecdotes served with boiling piss and vinegar. Helen loves this. I mean, top jobs in racing, closed shop, John. I mean,
once I did actually apply for a job in racing, believe it or not.
I thought you were going to stop once you applied for a job.
No.
Coronation programme seller, wasn't it?
And it was with Racing Welfare, and I forget what it was doing now. It was a fairly cushy sit down anyway. And they asked me to go down to the Jockey Club rooms for the interview, and it all went terribly well until this work experience lot from the BHA decided to show us around the Jockey Club rooms. They were somewhat taken aback that I could identify nearly every derby winner on the wall in the big dining room. Well, he was reading them off a card, and then during lunch, the conversation turned to racing politics. Well, if you've seen the Fast Show where you've got that bloke who makes an ill-judged comment and then says, "I'll get me caught," that kind of summed up the rest of the selection there, to be honest. It normally going swimmingly well. But,
did you get the job?
No. Funnily enough, I didn't even get a letter telling me to piss off. It was just a case of we'll be in touch. And I suppose technically I'm still waiting for him to get in touch with me. Beyond the bounds with the BHL, still making the amends. But
keep checking the post box. You never know. You might get some good news this week.
This is true, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, regarding Alan's question, I just think if your racing looks for a certain type of character, and it literally is that over your skills, it is, honestly. That's why we're in the mess we're in, because it literally is the character and probably who you know rather than your skills, and that's been since the dawn of time. Good question. We move on to the Dan Skelton affair, which was in the Times today. And just to clarify for our listeners, this is where Dan Skelton had got a nice set of owners, and they were asked to buy a horse in France that was apparently, a flying machine, and it was £130,000. And the owners that was very, very, very keen on buying on Dan's recommendations, etc. And the bloodstock agent who had recommended the horse to them. So they bought the horse. It passed the vet's exam. Then it basically found to have heat in its legs after that vetting, if you like. And then it got more seedier because after that, the horse in question was called George Gently. And it's promised as a flying machine. Obviously, they beat in a nutshell, they'd been sold a pup. What happened was they got in touch. They did. They had some success with Skelton. I mean, let's be right. They had some winners with Skelton. It wasn't all bad, but when they got in touch with the bloodstock agent regards to potentially another free horse or a discounted horse to replace this absolute pup they'd bought, which was sold for £1,800, it was the bloodstock agent spilled the beans that Dan Skelton had got he owned a third in the horse, and all of a sudden, no, he doesn't own a third. It was all left pretty sour, and it ended up with a payment was made after the week of sale to Skelton, but it was claimed for training fees, £42,033, which wasn't from the Skelton training fee account. It was from another subsidiary of Dan Skelton. This was a fee that they paid, supposedly for training fees, and that was Dan's share. So basically, Dan had taken basically £40,000 like profit, if you like, from the owners. In other words, it was like kickback. Selling this horse, and good old Dan gets 40 grand for selling them this horse. Now, to me, the article might shock some, but to me, isn't this thing in racing pretty common, John? Lorne Malvo? Is this?
I think. I mean, look. I think it's obviously we need to point out that it's still being litigated, and that's obviously the claimant's position. That's what they allege, yeah. And obviously Dan Skelton and his legal team would advance a different case, and that case may or may not come before the courts. The likelihood is it will be settled at some point, as most pieces of commercial litigation are across every industry. And people in any industry, businesses and people fall out all the time. I mean, that's just the way of it. But I think, you guys would know better than me as to whether this sort of thing, if it's true, it is commonplace. But the thing that stood out for me was not the fact that, a business is in dispute with one of its customers, because that's what essentially this is. It's the relative silence, or even absolute silence, of our own so-called journalists, that it's taken an outsider to highlight this and discuss it. And I think that's the most despicable aspect of it, not the dispute, because of course we don't know the facts, and Dan Skelton may very well be in the right here, who knows? But the fact is that TV, the journalists, other podcasts, no one's picked up on it, and I just think it's either they're out of the loop, which is quite possible, but then you got to ask yourself why are the industry journalists not aware of this, or why have they decided not to report on it? And I think I know the answer to it. And I think it's let's not rock the boat because everything's great. And that's my take on it, rather than the dispute, because it's a commercial dispute. So what? Businesses fall out with customers all the time. But why is it taken an outsider, in quotes, to highlight it? You think Indeed. Our journalists would be shamefaced, but they don't seem to be, do they?
Indeed. So John, like Luke Harvey, everything's great.
I did say I was going to try and be more positive about things, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, I mean, mind you, he was never ever going to be anything other than positive about a Frankie Dettori film. No. I think I said that I'd had more chance of getting a hand job off the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders team than him saying anything other than it was brilliant. But he didn't comment on that, funnily enough.
Absolutely.
If there's not cocaine and hookers in Frankie Dettori film, I'm not watching it.
No.
No.
No interest. But I think the point that our correspondent raises, I look, a business dispute, well, so what? But I think the fact it hasn't been reported elsewhere is, I think, the most disappointing aspect of it, really.
It looks to me like the BHA haven't been keen to do very much about it as well, doesn't it?
No.
You know, the fact that it's, you'd have liked to have thought that the BHA could have not necessarily mediated, but got involved and sorted this out to everyone's satisfaction. Clearly not, you know. I mean, so sign of trouble and the BHA behind the settee, aren't they?
I mean, what level of damages they're claiming? I mean, what were the figures that are involved? What have they lost out by? I mean, how much was
well, obviously they're saying that the 130,000 fee was set. I mean, basically in a nutshell, the BHA rules was that Skelton, as a trainer, should have disclosed his financial interest in the horse. So once the bloodstock agent made them aware that, yeah, Skelton owns some of this, right? That's where the BHA really should be saying more on this, because this is breaking BHA rules big time. If you have to declare that you've got a stakehold in that horse. Skelton denies this. Obviously, like you say, Lorne, it's an ongoing legal case, but as I've said, it's a very unsavoury affair, and from my experience, as I said, we've had instances like this. We know what the sales are like when, you know, you've got an out of towner wanting to buy a horse. You know, we'll go to the sales. You meet 2 or 3 people. We know what happens. They bid the horse up. They all take little buns for themselves. That exists. It still exists to this day, and that's how it is. That's, you know, well, come racing, as Big Mac used to say.
Yeah, I mean, the claimants are obviously exorcised by this. I mean, if the article's to believe, they've spent 120 grand on legal fees. That strikes me as bananas, because, you know, if you're spending that kind of money, the rule of thumb is to make a sort of a piece of litigation work from a commercial basis, you've got to be looking at sort of a damages to cost ratio of 10 times. So either they are suing him for 1.2 million, which is unlikely, or they're going to come out of this doing the money. Because when you're spending that kind of cash, you've got to have a real big upside. You've got to question who's advising them to spend 120 grand on a dispute that's probably not worth anything like 1.2 million.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the other thing is, I mean, obviously Skelton might be paying these legal fees if he loses. So
yeah, no, he will be, because under sort of the English loser pays, and of course the claimant will have after the event insurance, which means if they lose, they pick up Skelton's tab. But to go to push a case hoping to win at trial and get your costs back is bonkers, you know. So my guess would be that as this proceeds nearer to trial, you know, if it gets a judge appointed, you know, they'll be pushed down the road of mediation, and they'll do a deal of some sort, which will be some degree of damages plus, you know, an element of costs. But I would be amazed if the claimants come out with anything more than their money back, to be honest, or those kind of numbers. If I was advising them, I'm not a lawyer, but you know, if you want to spend 120 grand on something, you know, your damages have got to be over £1 million. The only people that earn out of that are the lawyers. It's not legal advice, just as a caveat there. But I mean, it's mad. It's mad.
I mean, they took all 6 horses out of the yard as well. I mean, so they obviously feel very strongly about this. But anyway, it's an ongoing legal case. Dan Skelton, don't sue me. Don't sue me for my assumptions.
No,
I've got nothing. I've got absolutely nothing.
We don't.
So there's 2 things left. I mean, we could talk about the low sun on national hunt race courses, but we all know the problem that when Britain built their race courses, they never thought about the direction of the sun at any point. Obviously, you know, we are now reaping what we're sowing. But only thing I would say on low sun, chaps, would we say that perhaps they could plan the race times a bit better? I've noticed recently they are doing. Lingfield tried to do it by having early chase races the last meeting. Maybe there should be more planning, trying to work out the sun's position at said time, and you know, if it is a sunny day, maybe go earlier or later in the day with a chase race, etc. Do we concur on that?
I think today's events at Leicester with the sideways snow calls it all into question, doesn't it? I mean, anybody riding in that last race at Leicester today, I mean, if they had goggles on, they were full of snow after about 5 strides down the back.
Yeah.
I mean, how were they steering? Using the force?
Fantastic. I like that use of the force. Yeah. Some jockeys actually believe in that, I reckon. Especially after a night on the town. Anyway, on to our last two subjects. Very briefly, I'll just go on about single customer view that's looming. To be honest, this is a subject that's close to my heart because obviously it's what I do for a living. So it's annoying. A single customer view, chaps, if this is brought in by the bookmakers, which seem to be in charge at the moment, right? Bookmakers are going to be arbiters in your future of betting, and let that sink in, right? You might be sat there now thinking it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me. Let me tell you this: if you've got 7 or 8 betting accounts, if Bet365 deem you as a problem gambler, because let's say you might have gone on tilt one day, which God forbid 95% of punters do, and they deem you as a problem gambler, that gets shared with every single operator. And they have the power then to say, right, you're a problem gambler with Bet365. They've been highlighted. Paddy Power, bet, also right across the board, you then cannot get a bet for love nor money because you're deemed a problem gambler. We are in very, very serious times with this. I do urge people to be aware of this, write to their MPs, because this is coming very silently, like one of those really silent planes that you don't hear about. These military planes that you just don't. It's top secret. This is what's happening. It's under your nose, and only time you'll complain about it is when it happens. You've got to do it before it happens, and this is the problem. You will lose your accounts if one operator says you're a problem gambler. You will not get a bet for love nor money online under any betting account under single customer view, because they can view your data, they can view your bets on Bet365, they can view your history. Yeah, we're already getting it with affordability checks. This is really serious times for betting in this country. The BHA are powerless; they can't do anything on this. The bookmakers have taken over. This literally is it. The betting exchange is injured. It provides a tissue for these bookmakers, and that's enough for them. They get the tissue. The betting exchange is fractured. For example, if you're under 25, you've got a £500 deposit limit on the month, and you can win £10,000 before you have to pay a premium charge. So if you win £10,000 with Betfair, you are then going to pay 20% of your winnings after that. Come racing. I mean, is this what we're about as a society? No, it's not. This is control, and this is bad for racing. And the sooner you wake up, and the sooner you write to your MP and tell them of the problems, and let these government officials and quangos know that this is not an acceptable way in any shape or form to continue racing. There are solutions. There are better solutions than this, but they aren't listening. And we're going to get this solution of single customer view. They're already going to trial it. It's going to be trialed. It's actually going to be trialed. And these are serious. This is serious stuff for betting. This is serious stuff for the levy, but no one's looking at it. Why? Because it's not made public. It's not in the news. It's not in day-to-day news. Read Lee Mottershead's articles in the Racing Post. You'll understand more if you read Lee Mottershead. Some good articles on there. And I urge you to read them, because this is very, very serious times for betting and for racing. Right, one final subject, chaps. Masks at race courses. Graham Cunningham did a poll on his Twitter account. 58% in the end from 700 participants said no masks at race courses. And today we have the news that Baldy Betfred has brought in VAC passes at Chelmsford, and not just VAC passes at Chelmsford, by the way. It's not the old scan-a-doodle with your barcode to say I've had two jabs of the old COVID vaccine. No. It's your identification as well, so you can't use your mates. I mean, Lorne, John, what is the world coming to? I wouldn't have a runner at Chelmsford after this, and I certainly wouldn't attend Chelmsford. What are you two's thoughts on this?
I wouldn't go anywhere near Chelmsford just on the basis of that bald twatter on in it.
You see, I don't go to college at Chelmsford. I have to go twice a week to take her, so I'm well familiar with the area. I mean, I suppose with Cunningham's poll, it was marginal. Well, what is it, 60-40 against wearing masks. I think before the recording, Lee, you made a good point that, you know, lots of elderly race goers are very like to be in favour. And I shop at, not Fortnum and Mason, gents, I shop at Morrison's, right? And the demographic around my area is old, compliant people. And I feel like a dangerous rebel wandering around Morrison's without a mask on, because literally everybody over the age of sort of 50 is wearing a mask round here. So I think that speaks to the age demographic. And I suppose if race goers are, you know, more senior than it's maybe at football matches, then you're going to get blind compliance to it. So that doesn't surprise me, to be honest, that there's, you know, roughly 50-50 support for it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me with masks is it's not the issue of wearing one, it's the mandates. Once you get mandatory, and it's more to do with the government. Once they start mandating things, we get more restrictions. There'll be something else. Like this doesn't stop. It hasn't stopped for 20 months. It's carried on and on and on and on and on. People just want to crack on. I mean, on-course bookmakers, for example, and I follow a really good account, Paul Johnson, bookmaker. He's a northern bookmaker, and he bets at Southall, he bets at various northern race courses. And, you know, these guys lost their living for literally, you know, a year. You couldn't attend a race course. You know, there's no bookmakers. They were awful. And I just think, you know, these chaps don't need any more uncertainty. They've got staff to pay, etc., etc. Do they need any more like restrictions? So how's Chelmsford going to be affected attendance wise because of these restrictions, RE VAC passes and identifications?
I hope nobody goes.
Yeah, I feel sorry for the on-course bookies, but I'm the same. I'm thinking, you know, these are measures that are too far. They really are too far for where we're at. We need to be looking to progress to come out of this. And to be honest, people suffered enough, and I think there's enough now to say, look, we've had the vaccines. You know, I don't want to go all COVID idiot. Don't follow my profile because I'm a complete COVID idiot. But at the end of the day, it's all about just learning to crack on. We need to crack on now. It's pointless. Otherwise, life's just not worth living. We've got to live, enjoy, and be safe. Be safe also. And like Lorne says about the older customers, do you know what? Indoors, I'd cope with that. If they just said masks indoors, you know, or if someone requested me to wear a mask in front of them, I'd do it. I'd probably do it.
Yeah,
but
that's just your face, really. Nothing with COVID.
I know it's like one of those, like, you know, like these goofy rednecks in Arkansas. You know, my mama said, you know.
Yeah, my mama's my sister. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's it. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, me and John wouldn't go. Lorne, would you go? Would you go to a mass meeting with VAC passes?
I couldn't afford the petrol to get to Chelmsford in the Volvo, honestly. For fucking £200 round.
Your 1990s Volvo does about 14 to the gallon, I'm told.
It's a repurposed hearse. That's what it is, yeah. God.
Still runs on 4-star.
It certainly does. Yeah.
John, anything to add before we finish?
No, I'm all done.
I'm done by this 57% Tarquins. It's tremendous.
God.
But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Lorne Malvo's brilliant on this sermon. He's got plenty of fan mail, and I hope you've enjoyed the show because I have with these two. Fantastic. And that's all from us. We're back on Friday with Frank's. He's back. You'll be pleased. The nap table leader that just shits winners. You know, it's like one of those like golden tickets where you just pull it out of the machine, it says winner. So Frank's is back, and we've got a new guest coming on Friday, a very good national hunt judge. So hopefully you'll enjoy his tipping rather than ours.
Or Stuart Williams.
It could listen. The way we've been tipping, it could be absolutely anyone.
It could be Helen Keller and no better than us.
Yeah, exactly.
We're drafting in new blood for next Friday's show, so make sure you tune in for that. Bye for now.